Well, hello everybody. It's Professor Steve D'Annunzio from Ohio State, and I'm joined by Brian Schreiber. Brian, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm the manager of air cargo business development for the Columbus Regional Airport Authority, the owner and operator of Rickenbacker International Airport, and that's where we're at today.
And why don't you tell us a little bit about the air facility here, maybe its history, what's done here today?
Sure. Rickenbacker is one of the few cargo-focused airports, in fact, in the world, certainly in North America. It was a former military base. It was Lockbourne Air Force Base up until the end of the Cold War, and then it was renamed for Captain Eddie Rickenbacker, who was actually a World War I flying ace, but a Columbus native and the most famous aviator up to Charles Lindbergh's time. Today, under the civilian authority that I work for, we are focused on serving the air cargo industry through this airport.
Interesting. So, long runways here, big planes coming in. How long are the runways? How many runways are there now?
We have two 12,000-foot runways. So those are about the longest commercial service runways in the state of Ohio. But because of the former military base usage, we have this nice large infrastructure with long runways that serve the largest aircraft in the world. And the aircraft behind us is a Boeing 747-8. It is operated by Cathay Pacific Airways, which is a Hong Kong-based airline that does passenger, but they also have a cargo division. So this aircraft that we're watching be unloaded right now is a freighter aircraft, an all-cargo aircraft.
So how many of these cargo airlines fly in here?
So we have the ones that you've heard of, like FedEx and UPS, have a lot of nightly service here in the package industry. Then we have Cathay Pacific, Emirates, Korean, and about 8 other international air carriers that come in from all parts of the world.
And some companies also bring freight in here.
A lot of large apparel companies in Columbus, Ohio. That's kind of what we're known for, but also a lot of automotive, electronics. We've heard of the Intel announcement. I'm quite sure Intel will be using the airport.
Yeah.
So the things that generally fly around the world are your high value, time sensitive and perishable shipments.
Okay.
So generally when you're moving your goods globally, you try to put them on the ocean in an ocean container. And we'll see our ocean container yard that is kind of attached to the airport here as well in a little bit. But the things that do fly constitute only 1% of the global volume of trade that moves around the world, but 35% of the value.
Wow. It's the most expensive way to move freight.
So if you have a high value or a critical like biopharma, you're certainly not going to put that in an ocean container for the month that it takes to get across the world. So that's why it's 35% of the value of goods that travel globally fly on aircraft like this, and on aircraft that you would fly as a passenger just underneath the seats where they actually load cargo into the bellies of those planes. However, not everything can fly, nor would you want it to fly in a passenger airplane underneath your seats.
Right.
So the freighter aircraft is what we cater to here at Rickenbacker.
Things got pretty crazy during the pandemic. What did you do? How did you adjust?
Yes, during the pandemic, the supply chains globally were really disrupted. And the ocean environment got really backed up. And when that happens, companies start putting their products, even if they would normally go by ocean, in air. So we had nearly double the amount of activity that we had prior to the pandemic happen all within the span of a month. And it stayed like that continuously for months on end. Right now it's getting back to a little bit more normal.
Yeah, so they actually took passenger seats out of some passenger aircraft, turned them into cargo carriers.
Yes.
Just to keep up with the demand.
So aircraft nearly this size, they did. Because 50% of the global air capacity resides in the bellies of passenger aircraft, when all those planes got parked during the pandemic, all that ability to move freight around the world evaporated. Right. At least half of the capacity globally almost instantaneously.
So how much freight could a plane like this hold?
This aircraft here holds 140 metric tons, which is about 250,000 pounds.
Wow.
When fully loaded with a full load of freight and full fuel, that's nearly 1,000,000 pounds taking off and getting into the air.
So Brian, lots of equipment moving around, lots of, we're going to see here shortly what's done with the cargo once it comes off the plane. Lots of people involved. Can you talk a little bit about the people that work here and the roles, kind of what they do on a day-to-day basis to keep the freight moving?
Sure, you're right. There are a variety of people out here. from what we call line mechanics, which are the aircraft mechanics that check all the fluids and everything when the plane's here, make sure all the systems are operating correctly. We have a full ground crew, what we call ramp handling crew. You'll see them driving tugs around and moving freight around. Those are the folks that unload and load the aircraft. And then we have security services, representatives of the airline. So there's a lot of different jobs, and we're going to see the warehouse in a minute and what that entails. But in the air freight industry and in the logistics industry in general, you can do anything from be an IT engineer to a pilot of an airplane to driving a tug around and make a career out of it.
We're also close to an intermodal rail yard.
Yes. So I mentioned the interplay between ocean and air as it relates to international goods transportation, and the majority of those go by ocean. We have a cargo dedicated airport here, cargo-centric airport, I should say, and right adjacent to it, which we'll see in a little bit, we have a rail intermodal ocean container yard, which brings in goods from both the east and the west coast deep water ports. The boats get to the ports, they put the boxes, we call them boxes, on the train.
Right.
The train comes into Central Ohio. We actually have 2 of those yards in Central Ohio. One of them is located here at Rickenbacker, and we'll see that in a little bit, which is the other side of international transportation, which would be the ocean and the overland logistics.
So not too far from us, there's about 200 million square feet of distribution space under roof here in the Rickenbacker area. How are those companies leveraging and interacting with the facility here? It's probably not as simple as just pulling up to a gate, with a truckload of goods and saying, here we are, take our cargo. How does that work to build that relationship and then get them in or out, right, depending on what they're trying to accomplish?
Yeah. So every international company that's doing business globally with goods has pretty much a large logistics operation, and an in-house logistics operation, but then a lot of outsourced services as well. So the trucking, they're probably not owned by the company. That's a partnership. That's an outsource. The freight, what we call freight forwarders, which are the companies that arrange the international transportation, the customs clearances, know all the rules of getting goods from country A to country B and vice versa. We call those freight forwarders, and then warehousing and what we call 3PL services. So large groups of transportation assets working with the companies that want the goods moved, and it kind of all gets coordinated, some with our people, some with the warehouse people. So a lot of moving pieces, a very fast-paced, interesting job if you work in logistics. You can think on the fly, like to be challenged every day. It's just a really great environment to be working in.
It is, for sure. Let's talk a little bit about this plane right here. Can you maybe tell the viewers like the last 24 hours of this plane's life? It's been a few places, it's done a few different things. What does that look like, and what are they about to do?
Sure. So the freight on this aircraft actually came out of Hong Kong, but the goods that were put on this plane in Hong Kong were not made in Hong Kong by and large. So we call that a cargo consolidation hub. So goods from Vietnam, Malaysia, Sri Lanka, India, they all fly in probably in smaller planes than this to Hong Kong. And then in Hong Kong, they load this aircraft with could be 140 metric tons of freight from all different areas in the Asia Pacific region. It flies to Anchorage, Alaska for a fuel stop, and then about another 6-hour flight down into Columbus. So that's kind of what this aircraft has been doing over the last day. After this, they will go on to Chicago, and then after Chicago, they'll go back to Hong Kong.
And it's a loop?
It's continuous. If that plane is not in the air, your goods aren't getting to you.
Yeah. So, in generalities, these planes come and go. There's some seasonality. The pandemic certainly had an effect on, your anticipated volume. Like in a year, how many tons of cargo are coming through a facility like this?
So Rickenbacker does about north of 300 million pounds of air freight a year. So Brian here again. We were just outside on the airport tarmac watching the Cathay Pacific freighter get unloaded, and now this is where the freight comes. So we're inside Alliance Ground International's air cargo terminal here at Rickenbacker International Airport. This is Mike Evans, their station manager, and he's going to tell you a little bit about the next steps in the freight's transition.
So here at AGI, the air freight comes in, the airport brings it to us in this format that I'm sure you've seen out at the airplane. Our crews will break the freight down by master airway bill, which is a 11-digit number that matches up with all the freight. You can see some of it broken down that our people are moving over to freight locations that will be provided to the office so that they can send out arrival notices to the customers whose freight it is to let them know that their freight is available for pickup. They get accurate counts on everything and make sure that it's all located together so that it can be processed as soon as somebody arrives to pick it up.
So, pretty big trucking operation at the front of the house. Can you explain a little bit about what you do,
Sure.
how you load the trucks, and then even how you receive the inbound freight?
Yeah, so here we have 25 dock doors. We typically run the upper half will be export freight that comes in. The lower half we load out import freight that's going out to the various warehouses around this area. So when a driver arrives, they'll have what's called a delivery order or a DO that will detail what freight they are here to pick up. This lets our office know what they're here to get. They get the location sheets for any freight that is needing to go out. They will assign the driver a door. The sheets will go to the warehouse, and the warehouse will load the truck up with all the freight that they are here to get. Same thing basically in reverse for export freight. When export freight shows up, they're going to come to the office with all their paperwork. They're going to assign them a door. It's going to be unloaded, checked for accuracy, checked for damage, and these kind of things before it moves into our export operation.
And within that export operation, you guys are responsible for providing certain security screening of
Yes.
the freight before it gets on an aircraft. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yes, so the TSA now has a 100% screening rule in effect for all export air freight that is going international, not domestic. So here at AGI, we provide 3 different types of screening. We have third-party canine, which is our primary method of screening, which all freight is screened by a canine. And then if there is a hit or if it's something that the dogs cannot screen, we have 2 secondary methods. One is an ETD, explosive trace detector. And then the third would be physical search, where you actually physically open up the freight, check the weight, and if there is a weight discrepancy between the shipping form and the actual piece of freight, that's an indicator that there may be something additional in there that should not be.
Going back to the import side, the freight that just came off of Cathay Pacific that we watched, how long will that sit in this warehouse?
So that's going to depend largely on who is coming to get it and the availability of their trucking. Most of it will be gone, if it's to a known forwarder in the area, will be gone within 4 to 6 hours. The things that get located to the wall, they're typically picked up within the day.
So nothing sits in this warehouse.
No, nothing
per
sits
se.
in this warehouse for very long.
So we're talking about international transportation and logistics today. And as part of what the Airport Authority does, we also oversee the Foreign Trade Zone program for a 25-county area in central Ohio. The Foreign Trade Zone program has a pretty big nexus with both our air and our ocean traffic. And with me today is Angie Atwood. She's our program manager for Foreign Trade Zone that works for the Airport Authority here. And she's going to talk a little bit more about how it relates to our international logistics operations.
Well, first, the Foreign Trade Zone was created clear back in 1934 as a part of New Deal legislation, so it's a federal program, and the whole idea is to help create and maintain jobs and capital investment in the United States. When a company is in the Foreign Trade Zone, their facility is considered outside the U.S. for customs purposes. Most products are brought in through ocean containers, and normally at the port of entry, an entry would be filed and to enter those goods into the U.S. stream of commerce. And you would have to pay any tariffs or fees associated with that. Tariffs are just a tax, an import tax that you have to pay to bring those goods into the U.S. So in an FTZ though, you don't file that entry document and pay those entries or fees at that time. Instead, you file an FTZ document and your goods are brought to your FTZ facility right here in the Columbus region. So as long as they're in that FTZ facility that's considered outside the U.S. for customs purposes, you do not have to pay those duties. So you can defer the duties as long as you have the goods in your warehouse until you send them to your customer. You can re-export goods, and you can also reduce import tariffs by importing higher duty rate parts and putting them into a final product that has a lower duty rate. In FTZ 138, we have been ranked in the top 10 for the last 9 years for warehousing and distribution, and that's in the nation. So we're really big. We have around $10 billion worth of goods that are admitted to FTZ 138 every year.
All right, welcome to the second part of the tour. I am Professor Jeremy Banta with Columbus State Community College, and we are here with Stephen Fuller from Norfolk Southern. Steve, you want to introduce yourself and tell us what you do and what goes on here?
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. Stephen Fuller at Norfolk Southern. I'm the hub manager for the Ohio Valley region, which covers Louisville, Cincinnati, and Central Ohio. And this is the Rickenbacker intermodal facility. And what you see here is loading the containers on and off the rail cars.
And you'll probably see here in a second a truck go by. And what's it doing? What's the big brown building behind us? What are they doing there?
Yeah, so the brown building is our portal, and that portal takes images all around the container, so we can reference those later on if there's any kind of damage or anything to notate on the container to verify it is a load or an empty coming through our terminal. And then that also brings it onto our system to know where we load the container and what trains to put it on. This is what happens if we get an empty container. She'll verify it is empty, there's nothing inside. We'll take a picture of that as well, so it'll get stored with the other images.
Driver running gate 2, you can close your doors.
All right, so now we're at the driver check-in process. So what's happening here, Stephen?
All right, so we saw the drivers come through the brown building, the portal. Now they're pulling up and they're scanning their phones with our Express and S app. It helps drivers get through the terminal a little bit quicker than actually punching all their information in at these kiosks. But so basically they're putting in their information, who they are, their truck, the container they're bringing in, with the chassis they're bringing in, whether it's a load or empty. We're verifying that in our office, and then we allow the driver onto the terminal as long as it has billing for one of our trains.
Okay. So you said they've got an app.
Yes.
I assume this process wasn't always automated. How much
Correct.
faster is it now than it was before?
Yeah, so there are still some drivers, about 90% of the drivers are using this app. So before the app came out, it was taking anywhere from 2 to 3 minutes to process a driver at the kiosk. And now they're somewhere around 20 to 30 seconds if they're using the app. So
wow.
saving quite a bit of time there.
Yeah.
And then it also helps them find their container on the terminal, as everything's GPS located out here on the terminal.
Nice. And are they coordinating with somebody inside, like live time? Does somebody actually pay attention to what's being scanned?
Yeah, so the person inside, they'll actually help the driver through the processes if they have issues, or if they're a load or an empty, we'll take pictures of those to make sure they're correct. But otherwise, it's all automated with our AGS system.
Okay, cool. And then once they get checked in, where do they head next?
So once they get checked in, they'll actually go out to our parking area. Currently have 1,800 wheeled parking spots on the terminal, park their unit they're bringing in, and then have a location on their phone of the container they're picking up.
The drivers come in, drop off their boxes, put them over there. Then they need it loaded on a train. So how do they get here?
All right, so we have hostler drivers. The hostler trucks will actually bring the containers up with how we have it load planned in the system. And you'll see right here, the crane operator will load it onto the rail car that our load plan specifies it goes on and in the order it goes to.
So you talked about figuring out where the different containers go on the train.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Every container that comes through our gate has a destination and a train. And that tells us what train they need to go on and what destination car we need to load it on. And so this train right here, this would be our 277 train, which is going to Chicago, local traffic, to get unloaded in Chicago.
So obviously somebody that runs one of these cranes is a skilled technician.
Correct.
What's the average time it takes for them to load a container, and what's a really good one to do it in?
So Parsec, the company who runs this terminal for Norfolk Southern, Their operators to be qualified need to be able to load a unit or unload a unit in 60 seconds, but a lot of the operators can do it in under 30 seconds. So it moves pretty quick out here once we get the units up here to load.
All right, so we've talked about the inbound, we've talked about the loading and unloading of trains, and now we've got trucks leaving your facility. And we can see two different things here. So what's happening at these two locations here?
All right, so again, just like the in-gate, we have our brown portal building. It takes the pictures all around the container, checks for seals, empties all that. And then over here to my left, we have the gate lanes where the drivers actually pull up and they'll put their container information in. And the clerk will verify the pickup number if it's a load, so that way we can verify they're the ones supposed to be picking that unit up. They have a 4-digit pickup number for any container to verify that they were allowed to pick that unit up and take it out the gate. So they'll verify that, and then the drivers will be on their way after we get a picture of the seal.
And while we've been talking, so we've seen drivers, we've seen some maintenance folks, crane operators.
Yeah.
What are the different jobs that are here on this facility?
So you have, starting off, we'll start the engine crew. So you have the rail crews that actually bring the trains to the facility. You have the maintenance crew for the rail cars that actually repair the rail cars that we load and unload. And then we have the intermodal side where we're unloading and loading the containers. You have crane operators doing the unloading and loading. You have a groundman, which helps the crane operator for seeing stuff on the ground and making sure the containers are unlocked and locked when we get done loading. And then you have the office personnel who track the movements of the container through the yard. We do inventories daily. They make sure drivers are getting out efficiently and doing the right things on that. You have the management staff who oversees it all. And then, like I said, maintenance as well. All the containers, the chassis that the containers actually sit on, they repair those to make sure they're good to go out the gate. Yeah.
Lots of different moving parts, obviously.
Yeah.
Well, that wraps up our tour here at the Intermodal Yard. Stephen, thanks for being our host.
Thank you for coming out.
And we appreciate your hospitality.
Hey, no problem at all. I appreciate it.
Thanks.